Arthur Schopenhauer was a German philosopher with one of the darkest and most uncomfortable views of human life. He believed that most human beings are trapped in a cycle they do not understand. We spend our lives wanting things. We want money, love, beauty, success, comfort, attention, admiration, and security. We tell ourselves that once we finally get these things, life will become peaceful. We imagine that happiness is waiting somewhere in the future, behind the next achievement, the next relationship, the next amount of money, or the next version of ourselves. Schopenhauer thought this was one of the greatest illusions in human life. He did not believe that desire leads to lasting happiness. He believed that desire usually leads to suffering, and that even when desire is satisfied, the satisfaction does not last for very long. The moment we get what we want, the mind quickly adjusts to it. The dream becomes normal. The prize loses its shine. The feeling of lack returns in a new form. This is why Schopenhauer remains so disturbing. He does not tell us that we are unhappy because we have failed. He tells us that we may still be unhappy, even if we succeed. Schopenhauer was born in 1788 in the city of Danzig, which is now Gdansk in Poland. He grew up in a wealthy merchant family, and his father wanted him to enter business. But Schopenhauer was drawn toward philosophy, literature, art, and the darker questions of existence. He was deeply influenced by Plato, Kant, Buddhism, Hindu thought, and the everyday observation that human beings seem rarely at peace. His personality was difficult. He was lonely, proud, suspicious, and often bitter. He did not have an easy life emotionally, and for much of his career, he felt ignored by the academic world. His major work, The World as Will and Representation, did not make him immediately famous. For many years, he was a philosopher speaking into silence, but this suited the darkness of his philosophy. Schopenhauer believed that beneath all the appearances of the world, there is a blind, restless force that he called the will. The will is not simply what we consciously decide to do. It is deeper than ordinary choice. It is the force that pushes every living thing to survive, reproduce, struggle, compete, eat, possess, and continue. It is not rational. It does not have a final plan. It does not care whether we are happy. It only wants to keep wanting. This was Schopenhauer's great insight. Human beings like to imagine that they are guided mainly by reason. We like to think that we choose our goals carefully and logically. But Schopenhauer believed that reason is often just a servant of desire. We first want something, and then the mind invents reasons to justify the wanting. A man might say that he wants a certain career because it is meaningful, noble, or practical. But underneath, he may want admiration, security, status, or revenge against people who once underestimated him. A person might say that he wants love because he has found someone perfect, but underneath, he may be driven by loneliness, sexual desire, insecurity, or the deep biological pressure to attach himself to another person. Schopenhauer did not think this made human beings evil. He thought it made them tragic. We are pushed around by forces inside us, and then we mistake those forces for freedom. This is why getting what we want so often disappoints us. A poor person may dream of money. He imagines that once he has enough money, he will finally be calm. He will not worry. He will not feel inferior. He will not feel trapped. He will wake up each morning with a feeling of security and victory. But if he becomes rich, the peace does not last. He begins comparing himself to richer people. He worries about losing what he has gained. He discovers new desires that were previously invisible. The old problems disappear, but new ones arrive. The house that once looked like paradise becomes ordinary. The car that once seemed like a dream becomes transportation. The number in the bank account that once felt impossible becomes the new baseline. Schopenhauer would say that this is not an accident. It is the nature of desire. Desire promises final satisfaction, but it only gives temporary relief. The same thing happens with love. A lonely person may imagine that love will complete him. He thinks that if one person finally understands him, desires him, and stays with him, the emptiness inside him will disappear. Love appears to be the answer to everything. It seems to promise meaning, comfort, identity, and rescue from loneliness. But once love is gained, a new kind of suffering begins. There is fear of rejection. There is jealousy. There is dependency. There is disappointment when the other person fails to be exactly what the imagination created. There is anxiety about being loved enough, understood enough, chosen enough, and protected enough. Even successful love does not abolish desire. It creates new desires. We want more attention, more certainty, more proof. We want someone to stay the same and change at once. Love that's exciting but safe. Intimacy but freedom. We want another person to solve a problem rooted inside ourselves. Schopenhauer saw romantic love darkly. We think we choose freely, but nature uses beauty and longing to push us together for its own purpose. Reproduction, not our happiness. Before we have someone, they seem almost divine, as if they hold the answer to life. Once the dream becomes real, they become human again. Moody, flawed, ordinary, limited. Beauty works the same way. A person believes that if he becomes attractive enough, he'll finally be free of shame, admired, chosen. But beauty brings its own prison, comparison, fear of aging, dependence on others' eyes. Attention isn't love. Desire isn't the same as being known. Praise doesn't silence insecurity for long. Status follows the same trap. Recognition fades fast. The applause that once felt life-changing becomes expected, and a new achievement, a new rival, is always required. This is why Schopenhauer believed life swings between suffering and boredom. One of his most famous claims: when desire is blocked, we suffer. When it's satisfied, we grow bored, because the will has nothing left to chase. So it invents a new target. It's a wheel that never stops. We believe achievement will end the hunger, but the hunger survives. Only its object changes. This cuts against the modern promise that happiness means getting more. More money, more freedom, more options. More doesn't solve the problem. A person can gain everything he once wanted and still feel haunted by the next absence. This is why people who seem to have perfect lives can still be miserable inside. The will keeps moving, keeps whispering that something is missing. He didn't deny pleasures are real. Food, love, music can genuinely feel good, just that they are temporary, unable to cure the restless structure of desire. Art, especially music, offered a partial escape. When we experience it deeply, we stop possessing it for our own ambition and simply observe, briefly lifted out of the chase. Compassion offered another. Feeling it breaks the illusion that we're separate from others, softening egoism and turning us from endless self-concern. He also admired renunciation. Peace comes not from satisfying every desire, but from loosening its grip, an idea close to Buddhism's view of craving as suffering's root. None of this means rejecting life. It means growing suspicious of our own wanting. noticing how desire always promises one more thing will finally be enough, and how that promise keeps failing.